Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmitt. Today, we're going to talk about one of the biggest questions that I get, I would say most often from my clients, and that is, what do I do as a CEO? What is my job role? What do I do every single day when I come in? Now, I'm not saying that my clients are sitting there twiddling their thumbs. Quite often, they're working very long hours. They are putting in all kinds of time. And they're doing a lot of things, but they know deep down that they're probably not the right things because they know they're not focused on what the CEO should do, or they're not focused on continuous improvement and upgrading systems and strategizing and thinking through things, or they don't have the freedom to develop a new product or develop a whole new area of where their business is going to grow, or even think about how to grow their business. They're just trying to run the business and trying to make sure that products get out the door and it meets their standards, and there's money to pay everybody at the end of the month, and money to pay the suppliers, and money to still pay yourself. They're worried about all these things, and they're not focused on growth, strategy, and how to do better. So let's dig into this. I know from my personal experience that it's a huge struggle. And it's a huge struggle so often because you've grown from doing everything. In my case, I started, as a working in quality. Then I went to continuous improvement. Then I was running the floor. Well, at one point I was supervising. Then I was running the whole shop floor. And then I moved into plant management. So prior to being the plant manager, I was the operations manager. So I had everything to do with the shop floor. Production, planning. I would work with our MP&L department. I'd work with shipping. I'd make sure that parts were getting out the door. I had all the supervisors making sure they had things. So I was very involved, working many hours just doing that. Then I got promoted to plant manager. And as the plant manager, it was like, well, this is the most important thing that happens in our facility. Yeah, we've got engineering that happens, so I'd get somewhat involved in that, but if parts didn't get out the door, no one was making money. It wasn't there. I would stay involved. And, at first I stayed involved because it was, I was training, I was passing it down to the new person, making sure that we were doing it right. But I never stepped back. I continued to stay in there, probably a little bit because I liked it, probably because it felt like if I'm not here every day, I'm not part of that decision, and then something goes wrong, then it's on me and I have to answer the questions. And if I'm not there, I just don't know what's happening, and I can't answer questions, and I can't solve the problem, and I can't put the right thing in the right spot so that things will work again. So I just couldn't walk away. It felt too hard to go and do something else. And the reality is, I was like, what else should I be doing? Because I'm so focused here, I can't think of anything else. Tell me if this sounds familiar at all. I know it probably does to at least some of you because you've been there, because you've talked to me about it, because I see it all the time. And that stepping back part is a huge challenge. We definitely don't have to try to work harder. That is not the problem. The problem is letting go and letting others work, letting others grow into that role and helping them to do it in the way that it needs to be done, or you want it to be done because it's your business. It's your business division, whichever it is, but it's you still ultimately are responsible for the outcomes. So the first thing we want to do is we really want to separate two things. We want to get some clarity around what ownership is versus execution. So you can talk about responsibility versus accountability, but let's call it what it is, because ownership of something, it's, my responsibility, or I own the fact that we have to ship parts to the customer on time. I own the fact that we have to problem solve this and we have to get these gauges calibrated or something like that and get the machines fixed and all of that. I own it. I own the result of it, but I should not be and I cannot be executing all of it. At some point, you probably were. You probably were doing all the things. Maybe you were designing the parts, getting them out there, doing everything but running the 500 pieces that needed to be run, right? You were doing everything. But as your business has grown and become more successful, you said, oh, I need to hire someone to do that. But you have to actually let them do it. And that can be hard because it doesn't have the you stamp on it. I call it with one of my clients, not to use his name, but the so-and-so factor, right? Like it is that factor that has to come in that is part of the business that makes the business run really well or makes the business it's the reason that it's grown. It's the founder's juice or whatever you want to call it, the reason that it's grown. There is a way and a way to put that into others that I'm going to help you understand and work through today during the episode. Hold on tight. We got a framework to talk about. All right. So before we jump into that, let's dig into, because really we always have to talk first about what's getting in the way. Okay. So we know we should delegate. We're not. Okay. And usually there's a belief in there. There is something that is in the way of letting go. So for me, when I became plant manager, it was that fear of not knowing what's going on. Okay. So if I'm not in it every day, I have no clue what's happening. I don't have my finger on the pulse and things are going to go belly up if I don't do that, or I'm not going to be able to answer the question to my VP and, or it's going to get out of control and I won't be able to help anymore. So that was my fear. Right? I couldn't let it go because I was afraid I wouldn't know what was happening anymore and I would lose touch. Sometimes there's a fear of they don't know how to execute it the way I would execute it. Oh, they already have so much on their plate. How can I let it go? I can't just sit and pontificate in my office because I need to help. You have to identify what that fear is around you, because there is always, when something is stopping us from doing something that we know we should be doing, there's always a story there that we're telling ourselves around the why we can't do it. So a great way to kind of dig into this is to start to investigate, like, okay, pretend you're going to let it go. What feeling came in? What feelings did you have then? So what is the thing that's getting in the way? And is it real or is it perceived, right? And if it's perceived, then let's get the real thought in there. Let's correct that thought. And we can do that through testing and experimenting, affirmations of just saying, it's okay, and I will still know what's going on. So that is one way. But the other way is there probably is some realistic part to it. So what we need to do is identify what needs to get let go of, and then put a structure and system in place for, in my case, keeping me informed, giving me the details that I need when I need them and to what level I need them at, right? So there is a way. There is a system way to do it. Or if your fear is that they don't know how to do it the way you do it, there are probably some structures and some systems and some guidelines that we can put in place, flow charts, that sort of a thing, or even a take it to 80% and we'll do 20% together sort of structure that can happen. It will fix that. So it is about first understanding, okay, what's getting in my way? And then second, how do I overcome that thing that's getting in my way? Right? Simple, very basic problem solving process there. Okay, so here's the framework of how you're going to break this down. So we understand kind of what's getting in the way. Okay, so let's look at our whole day. Okay, so it's so helpful, and I've said this before, to label something, to name something, because then we can do something with it. So what I want you to do is look at your buckets, your giant bucket of work, and I want you to put your tasks or your jobs into 3 different types of buckets. Okay, so bucket number 1, these are things you need to own. So you need to know a lot about what's going on with them. You need to be able to answer questions, make changes, and do something with them. Doesn't mean, though, is that you have to execute everything around it. So many of us leaders have no problem letting go of, so we keep the ownership of the finances of the business, We have no problem keeping the execution of the finances of the business separate to someone else. So we come in, let's look at the financial reports. Let's make some decisions around it. Okay, cool. Let's talk about it again when you have some more numbers for me. That one's usually pretty simple for most of us, right? Sometimes even hiring people can be too, right? We say we need this type of person. You hire a recruiter to do it and they go do it, or you give it to HR and HR is going to go hunt down and find some stuff. And then you get involved in the interview. They put everything together, maybe give you some charts. You talk through some stuff, make the decision. They go do the offer letter. They start them on the onboarding, get all their the onboarding checklist taken care of. And then you help train them. A lot of that is sometimes easy to let go. But those parts that are hard to let go are those ones that, yes, you still have to own. So let's say you're an engineering firm and, your expert engineering abilities were what made your company, have a place in this world. That factor that you put into it is the thing that makes it happen. Okay. So how do you let go of that? How do you say, now you, Ms. Designer, go design the thing as good as I did? That's frightening. Okay. So, but there's a difference between this ownership and this execution portion of this, right? And as we're looking at this first bucket, this understanding which part of it is the ownership part and which part of it is the execution part. And sometimes there's a little bit of both. I mentioned the 80% there and we finished the 20%, or you put some structures and guidelines in place that you somehow get your brain and put it into some kind of a checklist or on paper. Or you do this upfront brainstorming thing and you get the great idea, you get it all out, you get your concepts out, you put it all down there, you even put some level of structure to it, and then somebody else goes and does it and you come back. Right. So there is a difference there, and executing everything is not a reasonable or realistic thing if you're into that CEO level where you have a team and they have a team and, or even you've got a team of 10 people. You can't be executing everything because obviously you have enough work for 10 people, right? There's too many executing type things for you to do all of it. So understand bucket one of what you must own. Okay. So get that ownership level and understanding and separating ownership from the execution parts. Bucket that there. All right. Bucket two, what should I shape? And so this is a little bit similar to the what I need to own, but this is the what I should shape. And this helps you to separate that execution from the ownership thing a little bit more as well. Because again, you're designing a new product, you should be shaping that. You should be shaping, how this looks or this vision for this new product. And this is how it's going to function. It's going to meet these needs for these people. And absolutely, you should be shaping that. But again, you should not be executing that. So we're going to put those other things into that. I need to shape these things, but someone else is going to probably have to own product, right? They're just going to have to own that product thing. They can understand my vision around it, but they're going to go do most of it and they're going to own it and have some input into it as well. But I'm going to shape it and make sure that they've got my vision and my understanding around it. Okay. So there's a very clear another bucket there. And then the third bucket is what are things that I should not be doing? So some examples of this are very repetitive tasks, things that other people can do. Okay, you've got designers, you've got people who can code, you've got people who can draw things. They need to be doing those things, not you. All right. You've got people that can do your finances for you. Thank the Lord, because sorry to all my finance people, but these are those are the things you should not be doing. Okay. Sometimes these things get us in trouble, because there are sometimes things that we really like doing, or maybe we can't even explain it enough away to show someone else how to do it so that they can then take it over. Okay, so these are the ones that are sometimes trip us up the most because we get stuck doing them. A famous line I like to hear is I'm just going to do it myself because it only takes me 10 minutes. So let's do the math on that. Okay, let's say it's a daily task that you do for 10 minutes every day. That is 50 minutes a week, 200 minutes a month, 2,400 minutes a year. And what does that break down to? That's 40 hours a week. That is a week of your life. doing something you shouldn't be doing. Who wouldn't love a vacation for a week, or a week to work on strategy, or a week to develop something new? And like, think if you're doing that with more than one 10-minute task or a 30-minute task, right? So there are many things, and you can get so much time back by understanding what you should not be doing and delegating that to the people that should be doing it. All right, enough said on that. Okay. So the part that becomes super challenging around that is when we look at our natural wiring around things and we start to say, well, this is my genius, and this is the genius work that I love to do, and this makes me super happy because this is what I love. And then we keep doing it. And I'm always an advocate for spending time in your geniuses, but there are different ways to execute your genius at different levels within the business. And this is where taking note, and so this is like, I guess, step 2 in the framework, we'll call it. Let's look at our geniuses and our frustrations and make sure those aren't getting in the way of letting go of certain tasks. And it'll help bring some clarity around our 3 buckets that we've got, looking at ownership and execution, looking at things we're shaping versus doing, and then looking at things we should not be doing. Okay, so now we're going to take all those buckets and we're going to put them up against our geniuses and our frustrations. So again, let's say you're an invention genius and you absolutely love that whole invention process. Got a great idea. I'm going to hammer through all the execution of it. I'm going to like sit in a room and I'm going to dig in and I'm going to like try this and try that and do this and do that. And then, I've got the product and look at it's done. Like that is probably extremely joy fulfilling for somebody who's got the invention genius and probably invention and discernment. Like they're going to love that sort of scenario, right? But you're also running a business. So there are things that you might get more involved in because you're not getting to utilize your genius area as much as you used to. And there might be areas where you're not involved because you're trying too hard to get to use your geniuses. And now you're not looking at the future, or you're not looking at maybe the boring stuff, that stuff that likes to live in your frustrations and drains you a little bit. So we have to balance that out and understand how that might be influencing each of these buckets that we just did, and what really is owned by you versus done by you. Okay, so this can be very helpful to do with somebody who can understand the geniuses as well, because they're going to see it better than you. Like there is always, always, always better clarity when you're working with someone else, when somebody maybe outside of your really direct work area can help you look at your day, at your tasks, and what you're doing objectively. It can be somebody in your work environment, but if they're in the day-to-day with you, it's going to be a little bit harder than somebody who's maybe slightly outside of that. If you're one location, you're the big boss, that's going to be hard to find internally, but you might have a coach, you might have a mentor, you might have, even somebody in a business group or a work group that you're in that might help you through that. And that's going to be super helpful. So working through that with them and helping to just dissect your buckets in this fashion and in this light is going to be extremely highlighting for you and help you actually decide what needs to be delegated and what should be delegated. All right, now let's move into how do we actually figure out what should still belong to you versus what is going to belong to someone else on your team, outsourced, or dropped altogether. Okay, so this is like the litmus test question. So it's like stage 3 of the framework. Ask yourself this question. If I disappeared for 90 days, so I went away, I did not check in, I did not take phone calls, I didn't answer emails, I didn't attend meetings. If I stepped away for 90 days, what would fall apart? I am not recommending you do this, though you can if you think you can. But what I'm saying is, what would actually fall apart if you did not check in, if you were not involved? Write this down, talk this through with somebody, and take note of what would actually fall apart. So I'm going to give you some guidelines here to follow to check against. So what should fall apart would be maybe creation of a brand new product line, the strategy development, and not necessarily strategy execution per se, but like some very strategic movements of things might fall apart or not happen, right? Some really key relationship pieces, and those might fall apart. Big picture things. If nobody's changing anything on finances and something has gone awry on finances and nobody else has that authority, that might fall apart. So this is where we start to transition between, is this operational or is this strategic? Okay. And so this is where what should not fall apart are day-to-day operations, day-to-day functioning of the business. That should not fall apart if you're gone for 90 days. That might sound scary and you might not be fully there yet. Okay. So if you're finding that it is falling apart, then you have to start to ask yourself, why? Whose job is it? Is it still mine? Like, do I still hold that role in my company, this operation thing? And then ask yourself, should I still hold that role in that company? And if the answer to that is no, then put someone in there, but you then have to delegate the work to them and really delegate the work to them. Okay. There's also systems that need to get put in place around there because maybe there is somebody in place and you've kind of delegated the work, but they're still coming to you for a lot of things. What that means is you've skipped a system, you've skipped a structure that needs to be in place for that person to be able to function fully in their role and for you to function fully in yours and to be and to be happy about it, including your customers being happy about it. Okay, so now that you've asked that pretty tough question, I'm going to say it's a pretty tough question to ask yourself because it's hard to look and say, okay, that's going to fall apart. And I don't even know how to train somebody on it. So let's talk about that. All right. So once you've got this thing, you're going to delegate. It's that fun word that we like to talk about of how we delegate. I do have an entire episode on this with like charts and graphs to look at to help you with this. So I'm going to just give you kind of a high level view of it right now. But ultimately, delegation is not just tell them once and walk away. This is typically where I see people go wrong with it. And they go wrong with it at a lot of levels, right? So what happens is, okay, we tell them that it's their job now. Okay, cool. We might train them. Okay, maybe. Sometimes they don't. So oops, but we might train them. So let's say we train them and then we let them do it and we walk away. And then something goes wrong. They make a mistake, something fails, something blows up. We take it back because clearly they couldn't handle it. That's the normal mode that I see. And I've seen with myself, full disclosure, definitely have been there, and you take it back. So you're like, I still do it with my kids sometimes, even though I know better. I'll go do that thing. And they don't know the first thing of what I'm talking about because they don't have 40 some years of life experience behind them. You know, mopping the floor might feel a little hard for a 9-year-old. I don't know. So that's not what good and proper delegation is going to look like. So again, if you want to see the full episode on that, it's called How to Delegate Right. It's earlier on in the whole series. I'll have a totally different background, but there are visuals. I definitely recommend if you're going to go look at that one, watch it on YouTube. There's also, I get into it a bit on the onboarding. There's an onboarding episode, a few months old at this point. That's a great one to listen to as well. The long and short of it, if you don't want tons of detail on it, is first I'm going to do it and you're going to watch me. Okay, so the little bit of nitty gritty into there is you will watch me do it while I describe what I'm doing. So I'm going to narrate myself and what I'm doing, what I'm training you. Then you're going to do it and I'm going to direct you. So we all learn by doing, right? So you're going to do it and I'm going to help you. So if you're doing something on a spreadsheet, you're going to do the clicking and I'm going to be kind of pointing, talking you through what you're doing and a little bit of why. Then you're going to do it, but you're going to tell me what you're doing as you're doing it. Okay. And so this is like this third level of how you're articulating what you're doing as well, because this is like that proof of training. So this is a 3-step method. It was actually developed by Training Within Industry or TWI. Fantastic method, locks things in. And that's how people are really going to learn. Sometimes it's hard to do that 9 times, right? Like in an office environment, you do strategy once a year. You're not going to take 9 years to teach somebody. But there's a level of training bits and pieces of it and talking through. And it's got the same concept of I'm going to do it and tell you. Then you're going to do it and I'm going to tell you. And then you're going to do it and you're going to tell me. Okay, so that's kind of this 3-step sort of process with it. And then once you've done those 3 steps, now you're going to take it and you're going to own it now, but you're going to own it to a level of, I'm going to check it before it goes out. Then you can own it to a level of, I'm just going to check in at a regular cadence or a regular time frame of that. So that's how you're going to delegate, and that's when you get the freedom. So you put in some good work up front to get the systems understood, to get the expectations understood. What does good look like understood? You teach them that, you make sure they understand that. Then you let them go and do it on their own with your safety net kind of checking before it goes out the door, escalating kind of difficult things. And then finally, once they graduate from that per se, they then own it and you only have to check in. So you're checking in using some metrics, using some systems, using some meeting structures, coaching sessions, whatever that might look like for you. How do I check in without losing control? How do I let go without losing control and still have the check-in system? Like, what is this checking in mechanism? I was doing a training session and we were talking about how something had gone awry for someone. And, I was like, well, what level of check-ins did you have? Like they did not have a structure in place. And someone in the group said, well, a check-in is not going to help. So it's not just a check-in. It's not, how is it going? How are you? There's structure around the check-in as well. So let's talk through some of that structure. All right, the first one is metrics. All right, well, people love metrics, but people hate metrics at the same time. So in a large business, you likely have like metrics coming out of the yin yang because everybody knows that you should have metrics. And if you don't have metrics, you're not going to get there. You're not going to know if you're winning, and you can't make changes if you don't have any data on the changes. So you probably have metrics. But for whatever reason, even though many of us coming from large corporate backgrounds and then starting our own thing, we struggle to get the metrics in place because it's like, well, it's just me, or it's just 3 of us, or it's just 5 of us, it's just 10 of us. We don't really, look at the metrics. We don't need them. I'm going to tell you, you do, because whether you're setting a goal for 1 or you're setting a goal for 100, you need metrics. You need something to let you know objectively if you're winning. So there's got to be some kind of a metric around whatever it is you've delegated. So if you're delegating the design of something, maybe the metric is design phases. You've got phases of the design where it should be. There's a metric. And maybe the metric is around the timeline. Okay, you should be at this point by this date. There's a metric. Maybe it's on completion of tasks in checklists. There's a metric. So you've got to find what works, but you want to make sure that it's easy to get, it's maybe something they're real time doing and it's easy to look at. So you can't be creating this metric that's going to take, someone, 3 spreadsheets to jump over to another one, because you're just not going to do it. And it's not going to happen, and it's not going to be helpful, and it's not going to be that useful for you either. So I'm going to get too far into the weeds here, but there are differences between lagging and leading metrics. So you're best to just make it as simple as possible, real time. So that would be a leading metric if you can. Okay, so those are always the best because you can adjust real time. Sometimes you have to go with like a lagging metric. Like, let's say you opened a new facility and you need to check to see that facility is operating smoothly. A lagging metric would be to look at the financials for that area. A leading metric would be to be checking on production levels each day or execution levels of the processes that they're doing, or products coming out the door, that kind of thing. Like those would be a little bit more leading metrics because you're going to catch it real time. Like if you miss production targets 3 days in a row, you're going to have a problem at the end of the month. And if you're not, then you probably have a metric problem that needs adjusting. Not going to get into that today. All right. So you need a metric, you need a number to look at, or a chart to look at, or a timeline to look at. Number 2, you need a regular cadence for when you're looking at it. These can be daily quick updates. If it's a daily meeting, it should be 10, 15 minutes max. Okay. If it's a weekly meeting, so because it could be a weekly cadence, that could be up to an hour. If you're going to spend an hour, if it's very important, very critical, let's talk about this for an hour and get the big updates that are coming. If it's a monthly update, that might need to be a little longer depending on what you're getting. If it's monthly, you're getting several updates in that moment. It could be quarterly. That's probably if you're in separate locations. So probably not something that's going to be really close to you that is quarterly. So at this point, maybe don't think quarterly. I'm thinking daily, weekly, or monthly are probably your 3 cadences. It could be a bi-weekly one as well. But what this could be, it could be a quick meeting where the The person needs to bring you a specific level of information, and you have the right to dig deeper if need be. So they need to be prepared with details. And if they're not, explain in a expectation level setting way of either, okay, if you don't have them right now, go get it and come back and let's go. When will you have it by? 1 o'clock today? Okay, let's do this again at 1 o'clock, and you're going to come back and tell me at 1 o'clock. So that's a great expectation. You're not digging to get it. You're not spending the meeting getting it. You're setting a date to get it. All right, a date later for that day. But you can go as deep as you can, as you need to get the information that you need to get out of that. Okay, so if everything is going well and you have metrics of red, yellow, green, and everything's green, you probably don't need huge amounts of details, but it would be great to know why it's going well, what happened to go well, is there any accolades we need to give, that sort of thing. If there are 3 reds, then you're probably going to want to dig into those 3 reds to dig into what's happening, what's the problem, what's the solution, what are we doing to solve it, how are we going to do it, and how are we not going to have it happen the next time. Okay, some of that might be separate meetings, but that's what a weekly sort of cadence sort of meeting needs to look like. And then the last one is going to be some direct exposure to things. So yes, go to those production meetings every now and again. Not every day, but go every now and again. So you're seeing how it's happening. You're able to kind of ask a few questions, dig in, and then go back out. You probably let them do their job, right? But check in so you're getting a reality check as well. It also shows great exposure. So if you have like skip level sort of meetings, if you're there sometimes, but go and see. Like that is a big part of it. So that direct exposure to things is another way to kind of keep that cadence going. Daily shop floor walks, daily pop-ins to every employee, that sort of thing. Those are those kind of direct exposure sort of areas that you're going to use as part of your cadence. So with your metrics and your checkpoints, these meetings and these skip level things is going to see it in real life. These are your avenue to get the details. This is your communication to your team needs to be, and your communication even to yourself and your clarification to yourself needs to be, I don't need all the details, but they need to be available to me when I need them and when I ask. So they need to be available when we're reviewing the metrics. They need to be available when we're having these touch points. They need to be available as I go and see what's happening at the floor level or, in the meeting, that kind of thing. They need to be available if I need them. And this is your way, this is your avenue to be able to be aware of everything and to have a hold of everything that you need to have a hold of without having to be involved in everything. And that is what's going to give you the freedom to do the work that you need to be doing as a CEO. To wrap all of this up and put a big bow on it, the ultimate thing, now that you've transitioned from being not the CEO, from being everything else, now that you are the CEO, your job is not to do everything anymore. Your job is to be aware of things, understand where your ownership and your influence matter, and to check the systems and to follow up with the systems. This might not feel like fun, right? This might feel hard, and this might feel like something like, gosh, I don't want to just check systems. I want to design something. So what you have to do is you have to put a different system in place then, because as a CEO, you need to still do those things. You can do it as a full day thing, or you can do it as here's my partial way to do it, and here's where I'm going to dig in. But you have to design around it. You have to communicate it to your team, and you have to set structures and systems in place so that people can do the work that needs to be done, and you can check things that need to be checked. And by doing that, that gives you the freedom to do the things that you want to do and that you should do. Things that bring you joy and the things that bring your business money and success and those things that you need to continue to grow your business. Okay, so if this feels hard or this sounds hard, grab one of my free calls, because this is what we talk about in this. We understand where you are in this whole process, and we give you a game plan. We give you some points that you can go action right away to start making noticeable changes in your day-to-day, noticeable changes in your team, noticeable changes in your business. And again, if it makes sense to work together on that, if you want help implementing, we can talk about what that looks like to work together at the end of that call. But if it doesn't, or you're not ready to, you just go, you have a plan. It is all for you to just get clarity on it, because that will give you so much freedom. Just the clarity alone will give you freedom in your brain and freedom to just feel better, right? And do better and show up better for the people in your life. So if you enjoyed today's episode, or if you know someone who would enjoy today's episode, please like it, share it with a friend, leave a review, leave a comment on the YouTube, and subscribe wherever you subscribe to things on YouTube or podcasts. And I will see you on the next episode of the Business Building Blocks podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit KristinaSchmitt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.